for joining today. I'm sure a couple more people join in the next few minutes. So, there's a couple people that have messaged me to say that they will be late. But yeah, so today we again have a guest speaker, and we're continuing with our skill development and online learning. Thanks to your feedback that you guys gave while we were in New York, not last week, the week before. We'll be making some adjustments to the way that this stuff works, but for now we're just going to continue doing what we have been doing for the next little while, and then start to rethink about some of this stuff in the new year. Without further ado, I'm going to pass it along to Luna to be able to introduce our guest today, because she was really excited to have Kelly come in and speak to all of us.
Okay, well, what can I say about Kelly Gallagher? Kelly Gallagher is a film professor, animator, filmmaker. I would also add in historian, because Kelly focuses a lot on women's history, and she, I guess you could say, focuses on feminism as one of her themes, but more so in terms of just kind of because I feel like one of the biggest feminist expressions is kind of, bringing up history of women, right, that we don't really know about. So she's really good at kind of discovering women from the past and introducing us to them, and just talking about how amazing they are. And she does that through her medium, which I would say is, or her choice of art, which is animation. And so along with her sort of like women's history initiative, she brings animation to, and the animation she makes is pretty spectacular and very distinct. And she's able to literally illustrate to you these things in ways that I have never seen before. And I wish all history lessons were like that. And I would say that she's a very positive force, and she's just a craftsman when it comes to film and animation. So that's Kelly Gallagher.
Awesome, and I'm sure you'll be able to explain sort of your journey a little bit more as well, Kelly. So thank you, Nina, and we'll pass it along to you.
Okay, thank you so much. Was anyone recording that? That was so nice. Thank you so much, Maimuna. That was really kind. I apologize. Getting lighting right for these things is always hard. I'm in this like weird spotlight, so I'm sorry. I'm really excited to be here with you guys, and I thank you so much for having me. There's nothing I love more than talking about animation, and specifically the ways in which animation is especially suited, I think, to explore radical histories and histories of struggle. And so I'm really excited to kind of talk a bit with you today about all those things. I guess I'm going to start with a PowerPoint and then share a film of mine. We can do Q&A, after, and then there's like this sort of short activity that really just will get you kind of animating too. So can you guys see the PowerPoint that's like pulled up?
Yes.
Yes? Okay. Okay. Okay, so this first slide, so that's me, and the glitter will make sense once we watch my film. I use a lot of it in my work, so I thought I'd just say like a little bit about my background. I'm originally from the Philadelphia area, and I have known that I have wanted to be involved in filmmaking since I was little. Going to movies as a family was always like a big event, sneaking in candy and like debating the movies afterwards, ever since I was really small. When I was 16, I begged my local Blockbuster to let me work there, even though you were supposed to be 18, and I hounded them until they just hired me. And Blockbuster was this beautiful thing of the past. I encourage you to look it up if you don't know. But so it was this way for me to to have this part-time job that allowed me to rent as many movies for free as I wanted. And so I've always loved film. I'm going to, let's see, move to the next slide. There we go. So I really got into animation when I was in college. I did my undergrad at Penn State and was a film video major there. And there was nothing about animation tied to the film program, so there weren't any animation classes. In fact, I'm an animation professor today, but I've never taken a single official animation course in my life. So when I was in college, I was sort of I was a little interested in stop motion, and I kind of really was just in some of my short films, so we were studying a lot of regular narrative fiction film, documentary, experimental cinema, but all live action cinema. And so I started to just kind of play around with trying to teach myself how to do stop motion. And then by the time I got to my senior year of undergrad, I was taking this class with this really amazing film theory professor, Jeannie Hall, and she asked this huge lecture hall of people, how many of you can name 3 women filmmakers off the top of your head right now? And maybe 5 hands went up in a sea of 50. And I was so heartbroken, and my hand was one of them that was up, and I was really, really heartbroken and really confused and kind of angry. And so I decided to make my senior thesis project. I decided to spend my whole senior year making an animated film exploring the history of women filmmakers. And when I was first starting the project, I thought, how am I going to, I don't have access or resources or money to go around and interview famous women film historians. And so I don't have the time or resources to do that. How am I going to make this film? And I had been watching some cutout animations by this filmmaker, Terry Gilliam, who did these cutout animations at the start of these films called Monty Python. But anyway, and when I saw the cutouts moving on screen, I thought that seems like something. That seems like something I could figure out. That seems like something I could kind of learn or teach myself and figure out how to do. And so, sure enough, I did. And I just spent my whole senior year making this film. It's online, and you can find it online about women filmmakers. And so I haven't stopped animating really since then. So why animation? For me, I think one of the biggest misconceptions about animation that keeps a lot of people from trying it or exploring it is that a lot of people think you need to be really good at drawing or a really skilled, artist kind of traditionally. And I always tell, on the first day of Intro to Animation, I always tell my students that that's not true. And in fact, I'm really terrible at drawing myself. I'm really, really bad at it. So what I do think you need, if you are interested in animation, though, the only thing I think that you really, really need is a fascination and an interest with the way that things move. And I think so long as you have that, you're really capable and able to explore animation. Animation, the definition of animation is something I like to talk about too, because it's pretty interesting. To animate literally means the inputting of life into something. And so I talk about animation like it's resurrection, because the word animate comes from the Latin animare, which means to bring to life, to impart breath. And so for me in my own practice, I really think about animation as this fertile space to resurrect radical histories of struggle and histories that are often overlooked. And I just love that that's animation literally means to bring to life. I think it's also important to know that animation is so much more than Disney and Pixar. And this is not to put down Disney and Pixar. I liked the movie Up. We all have our favorite movies or whatever. But I think it's important to realize that Disney and Pixar and like character animation is like a fraction of the world of different kinds of animation that exists. For me, animation is powerful because through animation we can explore what I like to say is the emotional and unseeable. I know that's not really a word, but the unseeable aspects of our lives in ways that regular filmmaking can't capture. So for me, a good example of this, I encourage you to look this woman up. She's really incredible. She's this Latvian animator, Signe Bonmain. She lives in Brooklyn now. But so she made this feature film called Rocks in My Pockets a few years ago that explores the history of women in her family and how several women in her family lineage have experienced mental illness, schizophrenia, depression, and suicide. And so she was really interested in trying to like excavate these family histories of women. And in the film, when she's describing how her own bipolar like affects her, she does it in this way. She animates herself. And she's running on this treadmill, and there's things kind of like hanging over her. And, you know, if she was just doing this in like a regular talking head documentary, kind of trying to like, you know, articulate this, it would be much harder to understand. But because she's able to literally illustrate it, because you can do anything in animation, it really helps me better understand her emotional experience. So I feel like animation provides this space to do these things that live action cinema can't always do as well. And then finally, you know, animation is also political because through animation, our imagination can allow us to create a world we might hope becomes ours someday, right? So you can, again, like anything is possible in animation because it's really a blank canvas. And so it can be this space within which we can imagine or hope for futures that we hope we one day might inhabit. Okay, sorry, I'm just gonna read this one passage because I just think it's really beautiful, and then we'll move on. But this is from this really great radical animation theorist, Esther Leslie. Animation asks the viewer to take a leap out of now, out of physics, out of time, out of this world, in short, a leap of faith. Animation is not a depiction of a recognizable world. The mission of animation is often to tarry with the shadow side, the night side of nature, that obscured realm in which all unexplained and magical, illogical events occur. Animation goes, in all its superficiality, deeply into the substance of being, the hidden realms, the crevices beneath usual exposure, the constructions and reconstructions. And so for me, this is sort of this like kind of beautiful way of saying, you know, animation sometimes feels like this superficial art form or this just sort of surfacey art form, but in reality, we can explore a lot things that are a lot deeper because of all the things animation gives us the space to do. Okay, so we'll get to pictures in a second. I just thought I'd say like some of my interests with animation. So I'm interested in visualizing movements of radical resistance, whether against patriarchy, white supremacy, capitalism as well, colonialism. So two of my big art inspirations are Emory Douglas and Lizzie Borden. Emory Douglas was the Minister of Culture for the Black Panther Party, and Lizzie Borden is this filmmaker who made this this cult classic 80s film called Born in Flames. And I'm going to come back to those two folks in the next slide in just a second. In my animation, I'm interested in exploring the political as well as the personal, and obviously those things are like intertwined, and exploring the unseeable aspects of my life. So my films really fall within two categories. There's a lot of really political, historical films, and then there's a few more really personal essays as well. Okay, so the image on the top right is by Emory Douglas, and then the screen grab in the bottom left is from Lizzie Borden's films. So these two folks in particular are inspiring to me because you know, Emory Douglas talked a lot about the importance of visualizing resistance in his art. And so for him, it was important to show people fighting back in his artwork, because when we're surrounded by images of resistance, we're fueled ourselves, kind of in our own struggle. We're given the realization that we can also fight back, and which is why Lizzie Borden in the bottom left was really crucial for me. I saw her film Born in Flames when I was in college, and it's like, as I was saying, it's sort of this like 80s cult classic, like futuristic sci-fi feminist film, in which women are like organizing these collectives, and then like physically and literally kind of fighting back against men who have been assaulting and harassing them. And when I saw women organizing on screen and fighting back, it was like this transformative experience for me. I was given sort of the realization like, oh, this is what fighting back can look like. This is what it can be like. And so that was like everything to me for a million reasons. But so, you know, it really got me thinking about like what the power of cinema can be. Okay. So my work, and we'll watch a short film of mine soon. So where I get ideas. So so I've sort of kind of been talking about this, but really, you know, when I learn about people, especially women, but all different kinds of folks from history who, you know, mainstream textbooks have left out, I get really interested in excavating and highlighting and resurrecting their stories through animation. Also, as I had mentioned before, you know, some films of mine are personal as well. I call my filmmaking practice really kind of like a cinema of resourcefulness. And when we watch my film, this might become apparent. It's a lot of, I do handcrafted animation, and so we'll see that. But so I like the form because it feels like a practice of filmmaking that is really accessible. You don't need a film crew, you don't need a budget. You need a camera and like paper and scissors and the will to animate. But so it's, you know, even in the world of like, when we hear animation, we think like digital software and stuff that feels maybe like less accessible. But mine really, you know, I'm using things like in my house. I'm using just paper. I'm not using a lot. There's a lot of DIY rigging. So, you know, my studio's just in a room in my home, and I'm using, you know, just my lights from my house. You know, I'm bringing my lights from my house like in, and I'm really like, it's very like lo-fi, I would say. So I'm also interested in the politics of artistic production accessibility, which I've been sort of like mentioning a bit, I guess, throughout this talk, a little bit here and there. I love handcrafted animation because it feels like the kind of work that, you know, for example, when we see a claymation film, so, you know, maybe some of us are familiar with claymation. When you see something like that, an animation that was made with stuff made by hands, you know, oftentimes we think about like, well, it feels like something, it feels more accessible than something maybe made with software, but also, you know, one question we ask ourselves is, you know, like, I wonder how long it took to make that. And so handcrafted animation kind of also calls attention to the labor behind the work, or like the artist as worker, the artist as laborer. But it also, like I was kind of talking about with how I came to animation, you know, I taught myself by just watching a lot of cutout animations. There wasn't anyone. I wish I had access to a class, but I didn't. And so the process of how, you know, a film like mine is made is sort of demystified by just watching the film. And so there's this accessibility created. Like so like a week or two ago, I was in San Francisco for a talk, and the student came up to me saying, you know, Kelly, I watched some of your films before you came here, and then I made my own cutout animation. And I was like, that's just, you know, my heart like grew 10 times, and I think that kind of exemplifies, you know, sort of what I'm saying here. But it's also a form of filmmaking that is accessible to different types of communities, including like really young communities. So I've done a lot of, you know, animation workshops with really children too. And then finally, animation can be a safe space within which to experiment, play, try things out. There's this great compendium on women in animation by Jane Pilling, where she writes about how you know, to do especially more experimental, lo-fi forms of animation, there's something really freeing and liberating about like me, you know, in the corner of my house, like just experimenting with no one telling me this is the wrong way to do it or the right way to do it. And so, you know, so my specific practice being so experimental, there's something kind of like liberating in that for me too. Okay, before we get to, so I do have some stills I want to show a process, but I thought maybe we could watch the film first, and then I could kind of show you some behind the scenes stuff. So this film, it's 6 minutes. It's about this incredible revolutionary, this incredible radical woman, Lucy Parsons. And, you know, I don't need to tell you much more about her because we'll see about her. You'll learn about her in the film. But, okay, so.
Lucy Gonzalez, born 1853 on a Texas plantation, grows up and finds love with Albert Parsons. Revolution is in the wind. 1877, road strike erupts. Government militias take the lives of days later, police kill striking workers in Chicago.
Okay. Can everybody hear me?
Yes.
Still? Okay. Okay. So Lucy Parsons. Okay. So that's my most recent film, and then I thought I could show some stills, and we could talk about the process of making it as well. This is a weird photo of from behind me animating. I have a bike light. That I'm using for, in the opening, it sort of like goes dark, and then like there's sort of a spotlight on Lucy. It's just my bike light. So I'm sort of animating that here. You can see I have like I said, it's very DIY, lo-fi. So I just went to Home Depot and asked for them to put like 2 plastic panes into like 2 pieces of wood block. So I have these kind of upright structures that I can and then I can animate vertically, so I just have my DSLR there, as you can see, sort of, it looks like it's coming out of my head. Or I lay these down and do like a more kind of traditional down shooter rig, which is more traditional for this kind of animation. These are the knives that we're spinning. They were on like a green wheel against a green background. So then I took that all out in post and just like multiplied them in post. Here's some cutouts. The background for this scene was a teal sweater of mine because I wanted something fabric, because we were sort of talking about Lucy organizing. She works with garment workers, and so there's that image. And then, sorry, my husband has to leave. You'll see my husband walk behind me in a second. And then here are just some more cutouts. This is just the background. And then sometimes, usually my films don't play in like gallery settings, but sometimes they do. So this was just an image from a gallery in Philadelphia earlier this year, where they asked for some of the cutouts from my film. So you can see all the, you can see some of all the flowers that kind of go into some of my work there. And that's my dad watching my film. So that's the end of my presentation here. I also, have like a fun activity. Bye, Nick. I also have an activity, like a fun website where we can kind of do animations too, but maybe we could pause here, and if there are questions thus far, I'm happy to answer them, and then we can do the fun animating exercise together. Does that sound okay? I've never done this before, so okay. So if I don't even know like how many folks are out there, but if anyone has a question, however it normally works, do your thing and ask, and maybe you could maybe say your name and where you're like calling in from, if you have any questions.
I guess I'll go. My name is Hazim. I'm calling in from Buffalo right now.
Hi, Hazim.
And I'm super interested in what you do, and I'm interested in the process behind it because I'm in film school right now also.
Yay.
And I'm just starting out, like taking my introduction courses, but I'm interested in the planning process that you do for these animations. For this one specifically, did you storyboard everything before you started cutting it out, or did you kind of just was it a spontaneous process?
That is a great question, Hakeem, and nice to meet you. That's a great question. So I actually did not, I encourage storyboarding. That's not really how I work, though. So with this Lucy Parsons film, there was a huge pre-production stage just doing like a lot of research. And then I like kind of through text, like I sort of do my storyboard like through the written word, really. Like I kind of just like write out in a Word doc like the overall structure of the film or what I'm thinking. Like, and for this, it was really trying to create this, biography of Lucy Parsons. Like, so I kind of write out the parts of that I'm hoping to include in the film. And then from there, I sort of try to create like scenes, kind of like I just write out like I kind of I kind of try to write out like what visuals might fit each scene, or what would one scene sort of like, how much information per scene. So it's all just me like really typing this all out at first. And then when it comes to actually animating, I'm what's called a straight ahead animator. And so straight ahead animation really means someone who just like literally like I kind of have my cutouts, you know, I throw my cutouts down, and then I kind of like see what happens, like when I'm starting. Like I don't so like I said, there's the pre-production stage where I'm doing research and I'm typing out like, you know, my ideas for scenes, and I have like an idea of certain visuals. Then after that, I kind of gather my cutouts. So I scour, like, use bookstores, or I scour Google images and just print them out. I cut them all out, and then literally I kind of turn my camera on, and, you know, I'll pull together a few cutouts, you know, for the specific scene, and then I'll just really kind of play and like experiment and see in what ways do these pieces move well together. You know, and sometimes I'm inspired to do some, you know, I don't know, to play around and mess around. But yeah, but so once I'm animating, I'm really kind of like I have I have cutouts and visual like ideas, but I really work in a straight ahead fashion, meaning I'm like figuring it out as I'm moving through it. Which can be, yeah, you're welcome, which, you know, works for some people and seems like seems daunting for others. So I encourage, you know, like some people really like to storyboard, know what they're doing, but cutouts are so tactile, and so I feel like being open to sort of playing once you're shooting and seeing what goes where, you know, I encourage that too.
I was asking because it looks really complicated, and so like I wouldn't have, you know, thought about all of these frames in advance, and then like.
Don't worry, I didn't either. I did not. This is not like, you know, like mapped up, like beautiful mind, like in my head. Like I did not know. I did not know them either. I really, you know, I had like cutouts, and then really just went from there. Like grabbing my sweater, like to be a background, was like, you know, happened in the moment. Like I really, yeah. So don't worry. Yeah.
I have one question for you.
Okay, hi.
Hi, I'm Kenton. Oh, I'm sorry, my webcam is not on. I'm
Where
from
you're calling?
Saskatchewan, Canada.
Hi, Kenton in Canada.
Hi. So I know back in the day when I was like probably like 10 to 15 era, I saw, like I used to watch Wallace and Gromit like religiously. So I was like, oh, I should try and do this. And I remember playing around with stop motion. And I know for me, it was like you'd get everything ready and start. And the first, like, I don't know, half an hour is great. And then after that, you're like, oh my God, I've only made like 1 second of animation.
Yeah.
So when you're working, do you ever hit those walls where it's kind of like, oh my God, I have so much left to do? And like, if that does happen, like, how do you help yourself get over those barriers of like, you know, just progression and like having so much to do? And I feel like it's a bit daunting.
Yeah, definitely. That's an excellent question. For me, what gets me through animating is that for me it's a joyful process. That's like part of it. Like I enjoy it, and that's the only, you know, I mean, I think to do this kind of work you need to find joy in it. I also find that like cutout animation specifically, for me personally, moves much quicker than traditional claymation. So, and there's like, for me, a lot of the history of specifically cutout animation sort of lends itself to being open to imperfection, and also like one picture I take could last 3 or 4 or 5 frames. They kind of hold more weight. Like it's okay that things are a little choppier, and sometimes in claymation it's hard to kind of get away with that. And so specifically, I think cutouts lend themselves a little, like, move a little bit quicker, but still you're absolutely right that still it takes a long time, you know, to make some of these films. But, you know, like I said, I mean, the process of it is so joyful, and usually the content of what I'm doing is like also really like pushing me along, because I'm creating this work out of like my frustrations with misogyny and the patriarchy and white supremacy and what, you know, like there's definitely fuel there, and and that fuel really helps me to kind of keep going. It's funny because I was doing this interview with a student like earlier today. She was like, "What advice do you have to give to people wanting to make radical art?" And whether you're animating or not, you know, the advice is like keep going, like keep, you know, like take breaks, like, and you know, whatever. But these stories and your voices are so important, and I can't stress that enough. But yeah, you know, it's a joyful process for me, and I almost find it cathartic, which, you know, not everybody does, and that, you know, that's okay. But yeah, I love being able to make movies, like I said, without a film crew or a budget, or just like me in my PJs late at night, like animating. It's like nothing better. So, so yeah.
That's good.
Thank you. Anybody else? How many people are on here? I'm just curious.
I have a question. I suppose, like, so there are so many stories that you could tell through your work, and so I guess, what was it about Lucy or like other like people throughout history that make you want to focus on them? Because I know like we go through different phases where we just, I guess like we go through phases where it's like, oh, I definitely want to focus on this, I want to focus on this. What was it about her in particular that said I want to tell this story? Or like in the future, what motivates you for like other stories you want to tell?
Yeah, that's a great question, Maria. So for me, so before I went to grad school and became a film professor, I was a union organizer for a few years. And so when I was a union organizer, a lot of like the history of labor organizing was so very like cis, white, male, like macho, like aggro. And I just thought like surely there are histories here of people who, you know, were doing labor organizing, you know, that didn't look like this and weren't like this. And so I was like living in Portland, Oregon, union organizing when I first heard about Lucy Parsons and became interested in her. And then it was like last May Day, you know, I was just reading about Haymarket and Haymarket history, and I hadn't like delved into her life like at all yet. And I was like, oh, Lucy Parsons, she was married to Albert Parsons and the Haymarket Aid, and then so like May Day last year really kind of set me on the path of delving in head first, like into learning about her life. And yeah, I don't even know. It's funny, like to try to trace the beginning of certain things, like it's kind of funny, but it was like as soon as I started learning about her, I knew that I wanted to make work about her. You know, like sometimes I'll try to like first research like how much work is, you know, like if there were already some cutout animations about Lucy Parsons or something, maybe I wouldn't have, you know, felt as like drawn to make one, but there wasn't a ton. And actually, this is kind of amazing. Just a couple days ago, it was announced that this apparently like this like new, like really awesome biography about her. This book about her is going to be released soon.
Oh, cool.
Which is really interesting. Yeah, and apparently the book like quells, like gets right, like corrects a lot of historians' incorrect information. So it should be really, really awesome. But yeah, so I guess like in some ways, you know, these films I make about folks, there's some kind of like personal connection that drives me to like first be interested. The film before this, it's a film called From Ally to Accomplice, and it's about, it's looking at folks like John Brown and Marilyn Buck, who were these white folks who, John Brown was like an insurrectionary abolitionist, and Marilyn Buck was a white woman who helped in the, I think helped drive the van. She helped in the prison escape of Assata Shakur. Helped get Assata Shakur out of federal prison, who then was able to escape to Cuba, where she lives now. But so anyway, so, you know, just thinking about what are the ways in which, you know, for me, when I made that film, I was sort of thinking through what are the concrete ways, other than just saying, I'm an ally or whatever, like what are concrete ways white folks in historical moments have actually put their lives on the line in the fight against white supremacy. So all of my films kind of, I get, like, there's something, like in my personal life that, like, I'm interested in, and then I find these folks, like Lucy.
Cool. Thanks.
Thank you. Yeah. So I see we have maybe like 12 minutes left or so maybe we could do the little animation, the exercise. It's low stakes, and then if people have more questions as we're doing that, you can, just shout out. So I don't know how to. There's like a website that I shared, I think with Jay and Tanya. It's called it's abcya.com, abcya.com. And if you go there, which I'm going there now.
I just put it on your screen.
Oh, yeah. Share my screen?
Yeah, and then, Tanya also just put the link in the chat for any of you who are looking for it, so you can follow along.
Awesome. Yeah, share screen. Let me see.
If you go to Quick Start, and then you'll see in the middle there's like a share file. As you go more options, then.
Ooh. There we go. Can you guys see my screen?
Yeah.
Okay. So awesome. So it's okay. So we're gonna go to www.abcya.com / or whatever animate.htm. Okay, so you can see it on my screen, and then if you click that, it takes, so abcya.com, oh, there's sound, sorry. You come up to this funny screen, and then you just click go. So I'm gonna just click go. Okay, and then you have this awesome, just blank canvas, where I'll tell you a bit about how to animate. So, okay, so this is children friendly, which is apparent, but it actually is really awesome. So if you find that you really enjoy it, I encourage you. I use this site for people of all ages, but yeah, it's really fun and it makes animating really easy. So it comes up like this and it's blank. Like I said, I'm bad at drawing, so this will be funny. So I'm just going to draw like a square, and even that looks bad somehow. So, okay, so you can just draw directly on this white space here. I just drew, a square. At the top, you'll see like this is frame 1, and we can move to frame 2. So just as a heads up, there's 24 frames in a second. So anytime you watch a movie, like a traditional film, it's really just 24 pictures moving rapidly in 1 second. So this is frame 2. If you come over to this, I'm waving my cursor around it. On the right, it says previous frame. If you click that, you get a little like shadow image of your previous frame. So in animation, we're just making like incremental, like small movements forward. So I'm just going to bring my square and move it up to the right. And then I'll come and click on frame 3. And I have that ghost image of the prior square. So I'm just moving my square. This is, now I'm going to frame 4, right? And I'm just going to make my square here. I'm going to turn off my previous frame little shadow button and then come down here to play just to show you. And I'll actually loop it. So just this. Okay. Wow, that noise is awful. Okay. So that is, so I encourage you, you know, I can't see what you guys are doing, but I encourage you to try to make your own little animations. I can hear them happening. And if you dig this, like if you make something awesome, you can, down here on the right, I'm waving my cursor around, it says export as GIF. So you can make GIFs, like digitally drawn GIFs, and share them, you know, share them with all your friends who are Skyping in, or anyone. But so this really gets across like the basic process of animating. Now, you know, for me, I use cutout with a DSLR, but I know that this is like an Adobe sponsored project, like Adobe 1324. I don't know if that means, you know, I think that means they should give you access to Adobe software. I don't know if they do, but this is very similar to Adobe Animate, which is a program. So if your school has the Adobe Creative Cloud Suite, this right here is basically just like Adobe Animate. Okay, so, and if you make something awesome, you can send it to me. Whoops. You can send it to me. I'm going to, I don't know how to quit sharing my screen. Oh, stop sharing. Okay. But yeah, I don't know if you guys can, share with me your screens or whatever, but if you make something cool, maybe Jay and Tanya can give you my email, and you could email me your animated GIF. And any other questions that, you know, you might have about anything.
Yeah, we can definitely pass along your info. I know for some of you, you guys really don't like the pressure of creating on the spot. So if you are interested in working more with animation, you guys all do have, hopefully, access to the Creative Cloud. And if you don't, please let us know ASAP so we can get you on it. But you guys can sort of practice and play around with these things. And thank you, Kelly, for offering to share your contact information, because I know for a lot of these guys, playing around with new things, they really enjoy getting feedback on stuff that they create. So we will definitely pass along your info. Before we wrap up, and I know some of you guys are still working with things, I can see in Mina's glasses reflecting. Before we go, does anyone have any last questions or comments? We have a few minutes left if you do, and if not, no pressure. But does anyone have any last questions or comments?
I just tried to make an animation, and I was moving the mouse, and I don't know if you guys know, but on the MacBook, like if you swipe with 2 fingers on the trackpad, it goes back a page, and it completely just deleted all of my work.
No!
I lost all of that work. I lost like 7 frames, and I don't know what to do.
Welcome to well, hopefully this is, all animators have some like horrible instance of like, I shot all this footage and accidentally like lost, you know, the whatever. So luckily, at least maybe this, you can like check, you know, you've already had this experience and you don't have to have it again.
Yeah.
As low stakes as it can be. That's a bummer though. Well, thank you guys so much. And you know, I know like sometimes it's awkward like asking questions on these like, you know, but like platforms too. So, and you know, yeah. So totally, you know, when Jay and Tanya give you my email, well, I hear some animation. When they give you my email, you know, like, yeah, as I said, you know, you guys can feel free to. I'm happy to give feedback too on art projects, animated or just other film projects or other whatever too, as you're working through stuff, or if you need any resources, I'm happy to give them to you. My website, purpleriot.com, I have a page on just like animation resources that are free and online too. So so that's there as well. Yeah, so thanks guys so much for being here and listening to me talk about animation.
Thank you so much, Kelly. We really appreciate you joining with us, sharing with us, and teaching us a little bit as well. I hope that you guys took a lot away from this. And again, yeah, reach out to Kelly if you want more feedback, if you want more help, if you want more support. This is the reason why we do these things, and it's great that we're creating a network for you guys to rely on. So thank you so much, Kelly, again. And yeah, with that, I guess with 2 minutes to spare, we'll let you guys go. And if you do have any other questions for us, hang back. Otherwise, have a great evening, morning, night for each of you. And we'll talk to you.
Bye.
Thank you very much.
Thanks. Bye.
See you.
Bye.
See you.